Torna Fem Ciència, una sèrie per repensar el feminisme, la història i la cultura científica. Aquesta 5a temporada està dedicada a les ciències quàntiques, en motiu del seu centenari i amb la idea de desafiar narratives convencionals dominades per homes del nord global molt sovint catalogats com a genis, el que reforça la imatge masculina, elitista i inaccessible d'aquest camp. Avui parlarem amb Shohini Ghose, investigadora i professora de física quàntica a la Wilfrid Laurier University de Canadà. També és la directora del Laurier Center for Women in Science. Ha participat en diverses xerrades TED i a l'abril de 2023 va publicar el llibre Her Space, Her Time, traduït al castellà, sobre històries de dones que han participat en el camp de la física i l'astronomia. És la història de la ciència sexista?
In a word, yes, it is. The identity of what a scientist is has always been associated with being a man and, having this sort of skill sets that were never, apparently, even without any studies to confirm this, they were never associated with women. So I think because of that, women have not necessarily had an equal, opportunity to contribute, and lots of barriers that even now exist, but certainly throughout history has been even harder. Because of all of those, I believe that one thing is women have not had the chance to contribute, and when they have contributed, it's been deleted or, it has been reduced. The importance of those contributions are not celebrated in the same way. So it's in two ways, I think, the history of science is sexist.
L'any 2025 ha estat declarat l'Any Internacional de les Ciències i les Tecnologies Quàntiques. Què en penses de les commemoracions científiques, i en particular d'aquesta?
I think scientific commemorations can be good opportunities to raise awareness and, of course, bring education and connect, international communities around the world, especially when it's UNESCO and UN kind of initiatives. Right now, in today's political context, is even more important. A time where both science and research and expertise, diversity, inclusion, everything is under attack, it feels like. We really need it, I think. We need some forum to come together internationally. This year, I hope the focus will be not just on the science, but on science in the context of human beings and history.
La física i la física quàntica sovint es veu com una cosa neutral i objectiva i, conseqüentment, masculina. Com trencaries amb aquesta idea?
Science is objective, I think, as in, for example, if you look at the Schrödinger equation, I'll often like to say that there's no gender or race variable in the Schrödinger equation, right? The universe never cares about our, individuals. Gravity works the same no matter who you are. However, people are not objective. We have biases, we have perceptions. The way you observe a quantum experiment is actually quite different from the way I would, for example. So I think it's a false assumption that scientists are objective. Science, honestly, as a scientist, I can tell you, I do science because it excites me. That's an emotion. I don't do science because I'm objective and rational about it. Curiosity drives us. So I think we should own it. Being a scientist requires us to have those emotions. Objectivity in science has a part, but it's not the only part. And restricting that to be the most important factor to do science, and quantum science included, seems like a very limiting way of looking at the scientific method itself.
En el teu llibre Her Space, Her Time, contextualitzes diferents dones al llarg de la història. Per què és important mostrar referents femenines en la ciència?
Diverse scientists contributed to science. So the women that I describe in this book, they have made, we're not talking about small things here and there. These are major, major discoveries, right? The discovery of dark matter, discovery of the Big Bang, starting the entire field of particle physics. So just because we should celebrate those who have made that kind of contribution. So not having those stories known and celebrated is actually impacting what happens today. It's not just about getting the history correct. It's about impacting future generations of scientists. Honestly, I did not know the stories of these women that I wrote about when I was a child. For example, in writing the book, my favorite of the women in the book is Vibha Chaudhary, who is this Indian physicist, because I was born and raised in India. And she's also Bengali. I mean, in India, I am also from Bengal. So she's from my own community. And she grew up and studied physics in the same town that I grew up in, right? Kolkata. Just maybe, 40, 50 years before me. And still I never knew her name.
Creus que les narratives científiques dominants representen adequadament les contribucions de les cultures no occidentals?
The West has always been sort of default story, right? The default narrative is the Western narrative. And of course, the reasons historically are colonialism and, money, socioeconomic reasons. And that still is true today. So absolutely, I think that the history of science and even what is defined as knowledge, I think has always been biased. You hear stories, about the history of India and how the British brought education to India. But what we mean is the British brought English education, because at the time it was not even considered education if you happen to have Indian education. If you learn Indian languages, those were all deleted. So even the definition of knowledge was set by Western standards. So, and that has had a long lasting impact.
Quines lliçons podem treure de la incertesa quàntica per abordar el biaix de gènere i les barreres sistemàtiques en la ciència i l'acadèmia?
In quantum, there are so many metaphors. In my own field of quantum computing, we talk about, qubits are the foundational carriers of information. They don't have a particular identity. Like it has to be a 0 or 1, like a binary digit, whereas a qubit or quantum bit has this very fluid uncertainty around, right? It's a fundamental law of nature that you cannot know everything about a quantum bit. If quantum particles don't have to have a particular identity, why are we so set on this very binary man, women, white, non-white, this kind of, boxes that we create? Whereas the universe is all about uncertainty, and it's not a bad thing, meaning the reason qubits and quantum computing is powerful is because of uncertainty, not in spite of it. I think those are the ways we can learn from quantum and address our perceptions of bias. And we've done this in history, by the way, because, the Industrial Revolution, for example, it actually changed the way we think. We think now in terms of, people being like parts of machines also, right? We've saw the whole corporate approach, which is very dehumanizing, is absolutely, a result very closely connected with the scientific way of thinking of industry, and that has impacted how we think of ourselves. So using scientific thinking in society we already have these examples. So maybe now we can use quantum scientific thinking and change away from this binary and specific precision and embrace uncertainty.
De cara al futur, quin paper creus que jugarà el pensament quàntic en la configuració dels propers grans moviments socials o canvis de paradigma?
So I hope that we start developing the technology and think about the application like we are doing now, but also think about the implication, right? There's implication of how are we building it? What is the use? What is the purpose? But also, what are the foundational principles, such as uncertainty and entanglement? And, what are the lessons there? So that means we have to stop. So the problem is that when we build technologies, it becomes a race, and it's the same in quantum, where there's a race going on for countries, and companies around the world want to be the first. And so we're running really as fast as possible to build the technology, which means we don't have time to think about these things. And that's a problem. It's very much like AI. We know that this is not a good approach because, of course, there's lots of bias in AI. So maybe we learn to slow down a bit and think about slow science, not just fast science, big science. And then that will help us to learn and shape our thinking, where we control how we shape it, not just we passively, use it and then it shapes us without our sort of own participation in that shaping. I hope we participate, and when I say we, I hope it's more than just a few people and few countries.
Quin principi de la mecànica quàntica utilitzaries per descriure el moviment feminista?
Wow. That's a good one. You know what? I will go with quantum tunneling because, you have to break through barriers. So I think that it's kind of an inspirational idea. And I think that women have been breaking barriers for, I don't know, long before quantum existed. So I think of quantum tunneling when I think about the feminist movement.
Thank you very much, Shohini. Les entrevistes es publicaran cada 2 dijous. Estigueu atentes. Fins aviat!